Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another episode of the Arsenal News Show, joining you every morning at 8 a.m. UK time. That's right. The Arsenal transfer shows are in hibernation until June of this year, of which, of course, we will relaunch the show in the build-up to the summer transfer window that opens in July. And we'll be covering all of the fallout to the end of this season. But the January window finished. Arsenal did plenty of business, both in and out of the club, which is very, very different to, of course, what Arsenal did last January in 2022. Very different window indeed. Plenty to talk about, plenty to discuss. But as I say, I want to kick things off by telling you thank you so much for continuing to support the channel, continuing to make this a part of your morning routines. We will be continuing with our 8 a.m. shows, running out all the latest Arsenal news. Of course, we'll be talking about the latest Arsenal transfer rumours still as well and breaking those down. Leading up to the games, talking about we've got the academy stuff, we've got the women's game, and everything Arsenal will be rounded up in these shows. So stick here, stick with Arsenal, and stick with the Gooner Talk for 8 a.m.s because it's going to be a fantastic end to the season. Good morning to everybody joining us live in the chat box. Hope you're doing good. Hope you're doing well. Gary Griffin, good morning to you, to Ansa, to Amira, to Temi. Good morning to Harrison and PJ. Good morning to Stephen, Matt G, Martin, Dave, Elder Boatza. We've got plenty more of you guys, Jashar, Martin, CNS, Nav, and so many more as well joining you. Really good to see. As always, you in the chat box, do drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you are indeed new around here, with those notifications turned on so you never miss a show. So let's get on with today's stories. We start with Hector Bellerin joining Sporting Lisbon on a permanent deal, which means that Arsenal will indeed get 25%, to my understanding, around that figure of whatever Sporting paid Barca. Now, you may know even better than me in this case, but I struggled to find information on how much Sporting have paid Barcelona for Bellerin. If anything, he only had 6 months left on his deal. It could be nothing. It could be something. We'll have to wait and see. But yes, Bellerin has joined Sporting Lisbon to be Pedro Porro's replacement, who left for Tottenham Hotspur for the foreseeable future. Mohamed Elneny was confirmed to have suffered a serious knee injury. As we know, this has been a situation that has been ongoing for some time. We knew that he was injured. We knew that Arsenal were reacting to it, and they confirmed yesterday the injury. Now, it is expected that they were holding off announcing officially the injury because of how it might affect any potential transfer talks. And it was unsurprising to see that Arsenal confirmed their midfield signing just moments after they confirmed Mohamed Elneny would be out for the long term. Moving forwards, Arsenal did plenty of business in the youth side yesterday. First of all, they recalled Salah-Eddine Ouladamhand from Hull City. He joined on a loan deal in the summer, and actually Hull had an option of around 5 million or so to actually sign Salah-Eddine on a permanent deal in the summer. However, an injury kept him out from playing for most of that season. And then when he returned, he could not get back into the side. So Arsenal decided to recall him, bring him back, and he will return to the squad. He is a highly rated young player, and they really did enjoy what he was producing in the academy. But an offer from Hull with that option seems too good to turn down. But injuries, unfortunately, have affected his career so far, and hopefully he can re-find his form between now and the end of the season. Arsenal have also snatched Spurs' emerging talent chief as well. I don't know why I've included Spurs in there twice. I guess I'm just rubbing it in. He is going to be the professional development phase scout, part of the Arsenal Academy setup. He is credited with finding plenty of Spurs' young stars that have come through, and Arsenal have managed to pull off a little bit of a coup in the academy world by taking him away from our North London rivals. So Chris Perkins, the previous emerging talent chief for Tottenham, joins Arsenal as the professional development phase scout. Arsenal, of course, have added to their attacking coaching phases as well with a new coach this winter. So they've not just done things on field, they've also done things off field as well. The youth side did lose, however, still topped their PL Cup group. They lost 3-2 to Burnley with a much changed team because some players were not available because they had left the club. We'll talk you through those now. Nathan Butler-Oyedeji has joined Accrington Stanley on loan. As you know, he was a player that had been on the bench a couple of times. He played for Arsenal during their mid-season breakout in Dubai. He came off the bench against Lyon and Milan. And obviously with Gabriel Jesus out, he has been on the bench. But with Trossard coming in, with Gabriel Jesus hopefully coming back in maybe a couple of months, we'll have to wait and see, but hopefully more weeks than months, he has gone out on loan to get some senior regular football. Taylor Foran has joined Hartlepool in League Two on loan for the rest of the season. The centre-back has had an impressive season so far and has certainly earned a loan move to see how he might transition to a senior level of football. And he's not the only Taylor to be sent on loan, because Taylor-Hart and Billy Vigar have both joined Derby County on loan for the rest of the season as well. Of course, we wish them the absolute best of luck and hope that Taylor-Hart in particular, who was a very highly rated young midfielder / wide player who can play in a number of positions in a forward sense and in midfield, was very highly rated, signed a professional contract last year and hasn't necessarily been able to fulfill that potential, with other players like Amaro Koja-Dubry and Miles Lewis-Skelly certainly gaining more, and Ethan Nwaneri as well, gaining much more attention. That wasn't it though, because Omar Rekik was also recalled like Salah-Eddine. However, he was sent on loan to Wigan. He was on loan at Sparta Rotterdam in the Netherlands, but barely kicked a ball. In fact, couldn't even kick a ball for their youth side. So hopefully this will be a loan deal that significantly changes Omar Rekik's fortunes. We signed him, of course, from Hertha Berlin a couple of years ago. He's not necessarily been able to kick on so much since that point. He's seen as a very good distributor of the ball from the back, and the hope will be that Omar Rekik will rediscover his form at one of the worst performing sides, to be fair, in the Championship. But we'll have to wait and see how indeed he copes with that level of the game. Fulham signed Cedric Soares, moving on to the senior side of things, on loan. No option to buy in this. Cedric said that he was been pushing for this deal for quite some time. As we know, he's been out of the Arsenal squad as well. He will join, and his wages are expected to be covered in full. He's nearing £100,000 per week, which will effectively cover the wages, just about 70% or so of our brand new midfield signing, who we'll talk about shortly. But Cedric also left on loan until the end of the season. Not only that, but Sambi Lokonga, and maybe surprisingly so for some, left the club also on loan until the end of the season. He joined Crystal Palace, and Patrick Vieira as a very good interview and video of him joining. I encourage you to go and watch that if indeed you haven't been able to already. But yes, Lokonga will spend the rest of the season on loan. I am a little bit frustrated with this one. I think that we've left ourselves a little bit thin by letting Lokonga leave. However, there is a strong argument that he wasn't happy, and that unhappy kind of feeling in the dressing room was therefore the right then decision to send him out on loan, so you don't have a player that is unhappy in the group. Hopefully he does well. Of course, with Cedric and Lokonga and all of our players that we've sent on loan, we'll be keeping you up to date monthly with how they get on during our Tactical Breakdown Loan Report series. I'm going to have to be reaching out to some Crystal Palace content creators to get their thoughts on how Lokonga performs. So we'll wait and see, and I look forward to bringing you all of those updates. Of course, Arsenal did announce a signing yesterday for the senior side, and that was Jorginho from Chelsea. He arrived in a £12 million deal, of which £2 million of that is in add-ons. He joins on an 18-month contract with an option to extend for an additional year. And the Chelsea midfielder, who started 15 games for Chelsea this season, will come in as a competitive option in midfield for Thomas Partey. Of course, Arsenal wanted to sign other players during this window, and it proved too tricky. And we'll talk about your thoughts and feelings on this deal, of course, in part 2 with your questions. But for me, I was a bit disappointed when the link first emerged. Took a step back, I slept on it, and in reflection, I think actually, considering the situation that we're in, getting a Premier League ready midfielder to come in to play that 6 role should we need him is actually maybe a smarter move than many people realise. Of course, we did do a tactical breakdown on Jorginho, and you can hear all about who he is, what he's done, what he might do for Arsenal with the help of Daniel Charles from Son of Chelsea. So if you haven't already given that tactical breakdown a watch, it is the second to last preview episode on the channel. We also did a phone-in show last night, talking to plenty of Arsenal supporters about their thoughts and feelings of the Jorginho deal. So if you want to get an insight into how a varied number of supporters are feeling regarding the signing, it is there and available for you to listen to. Now, Arsenal had other interest in players. Ivan Fresneda was one of those. However, he has stayed with Real Valladolid until the end of the season, despite calls and suggestions that Borussia Dortmund had led and even won the race for him. That wasn't the case. Arsenal and Dortmund were two options for him. However, despite some loan offers from unnamed club at the end of the window, he will remain with them until the end of the season. His agent has actually come out and said that Arsenal and Dortmund are two great clubs that are potentially options for him in the summer. So he'll be one to watch between now and the end of the summer transfer window. And finally, of course, Arsenal did not sign Moises Caicedo. Despite having two bids, no more than two, rejected for Moises Caicedo, he will stay with Brighton until the end of the season. It will be interesting to see how he reintegrates into the squad, having kicked up quite a fuss. There were very speculative reports yesterday that Arsenal had both submitted and agreed our third bid and that he'd actually travelled to London. That turned out not to be true. As I always tell you, please do take things with a pinch of salt and please do double check information that you see online. Certainly not worth getting too hyped up and excited about. And I'm glad that plenty of the aggregators out there actually managed to avoid the temptation of sharing a number of those posts, because it certainly was an unfortunate day that even led to plenty of abuse being sent towards specific people both back and forth, which was not the ideal situation at all. Anyway, that brings us to an end of part one. But it doesn't bring us to an end of me telling you about NordVPN, which is a fantastic VPN service that, of course, will provide you with all of the relevant protection you need to keep those peeping tods away from you and yours. You can get yourself a significant discount off the service, as much as 64% by going to nordvpn.com/Gooner. You get yourself, of course, a 30-day money-back guarantee if you're not happy with the service. And as I say, it's a really good way to keep yourself safe and secure online, as well as being able to change geolocation. Whilst Arsenal weren't able to change the geolocation of some of their transfer targets this window, which we will talk about shortly, perhaps if they had had NordVPN, it would have been much, much simpler. So make sure you get hold of the service and go to nordvpn.com/Gooner to get yourself a significant discount off your subscription. Right then, part two coming up right after this. Okay, let's go to questions. Just going to take a sip of this because I feel like I'm going to need to be ready to talk quite a lot in this second part of the show. Again, a massive thanks to everybody that's helped support the channel over the course of the January transfer window. Means a hell of a lot. And we've had plenty of new people sign up as new members, become part of the TGT family, and of course, as well, extend and go through the community even more. We are really close to hitting 45,000 subscribers as well, which is also a mad achievement. But thank you to PJ for joining up as a member as well, and Matt Tomo as well in the chat box, joining up as members to the TGT community. Okay. Let's jump into the chat then and get some of these questions. Gooner Jake says, Tom, not to be harsh, but do you think Omari Hutchinson is regretting his decision and that his loan will knock his confidence? I mean, potentially Arsenal were actually looking at sending him on loan to Reading last summer before he left the club and joined Chelsea. He made one Premier League appearance off the bench, I think, in a defeat to Manchester City. And other than that, has not really been able to get much minutes at all. He has seen a number of players come in. Of course, we've seen Mykhailo Mudryk join, and they've also been able to bring in Noni Madueke as well into the team, which has obviously made things much harder for Omari Hutchinson to come through. Hakim Ziyech's move to PSG collapsed yesterday. It's expected that he will now stay at Chelsea too. So the opportunities for him in getting any minutes this season were extremely limited. Do I think he'll regret moving from Arsenal? If he does, it's his own fault at the end of the day, because I think there was a really good chance for him to potentially come through. You've got really little depth and you've got a really big pathway behind Bukayo Saka to get some potential minutes in the first team. And unfortunately, he will not get them. John says, question, when will our club throw away its old valuations book and move into the new era of the £100 million plus players? No Rice or Caicedo unless they do, methinks. Caicedo wasn't available at any price, is the difference. Who knows if Arsenal had gone in earlier in the window for Caicedo, whether or not that might have changed. Maybe it would have done. We don't know. We won't know. But with Caicedo at the end of the window, no matter what we bid for the player, unfortunately, he wasn't going to be there. Same with Rice, wasn't available in the January window. We're going to have to wait and see what Arsenal do in the summer transfer window. But they are going to have to bite the bullet. They are, I agree with you, John, going to have to realise that if they want to be at the top of the Premier League table consistently and challenge for the title season upon season, they are going to have to look to spend those very, very big fees and break their transfer value. I told you throughout the Mudryk situation, there was a reluctance in Arsenal to make Mudryk their record signing. Eventually, they were willing to go past that valuation that they previously had. But by that time, it was too late. And in my opinion, Edu acted too slowly. And actually, I agreed with what a lot of what Mohamed said last night on our on our phone-in show about the slowness of Edu during this window. I'm happy with what we did in the end, but I do feel as though potentially we've missed out on some opportunities that we might have had, and maybe we need to be a bit quicker and more proactive in the market. Let's go to Arn, who says, Tom, I think the Jorginho deal is more palatable, good word, when thought of as a non-Kia signing. Both of Willian and Louise were Kia Jarabchin signings. That's a really good way of actually looking at it, Arn. Yeah, I agree with you. I think if you look at them as Chelsea, it kind of encompasses them all. But if you look at them as Kia Jarabchin signings, as well as Cedric, of course, was involved in Kia's work as well, I think it's a much, much better way to potentially look at the signing of Jorginho, who I hope surprises people. I really, really hope that he does surprise people, because he's certainly been able to perform at the top level consistently and started regularly at the top level for quite some time. So we've signed a player that's going to be able to come in and do a good job for us, I think, in the remaining 6 months of the season. Amira says, have Chelsea officially set the new benchmark when it comes to transfer fees, or do you think most clubs will still be sensible and set reasonable prices for their players? Unfortunately, I do think that the likes of Chelsea and Manchester United have indeed affected the market. I think it would be naive to think that they haven't. But Arsenal were also willing to invest in those massive, massive fees. We were willing to up 90 odd million euros for Mykhailo Mudryk. We were also willing to go as high as 70 plus million for Caicedo. So at the end of the day, we are also paying well over the odds. You can say that's in response and obviously a reaction, and because those teams have already raised the prices, but we're not being stubborn in that fact. We are bidding big for some of those players, and we could have ended up spending over 100 million this January window had we been able to secure Caicedo. So Arsenal are also going to be involved, and I hope that in the summer that we do unfortunately have to deal with the fact that the prices are inflated. And if we want to stay where we are, which is at the top of the table, we are going to have to unfortunately spend those very, very big fees indeed. Zander says, got a good feeling about Jorginho. He has arrived into a better squad, a better system, and in my opinion, with a better manager. So to say that we will see the exact same Jorginho, who knows at the end of the day. Louis says, do we need to sort out Saliba, Martinelli and Saka's contracts soon? Martinelli's already signed, so that's done and dusted. You may have missed the announcement. In fact, the announcement of Martinelli's contract really did fly under the radar because of the chaos of the January transfer window. But Martinelli has indeed agreed a brand new contract with Arsenal. Saliba and Saka, they will now accelerate talks with the window closing, and that will become much more of a priority after the window is now closed. The club are said to be confident of securing new deals for both players, so let's hope that we have some news on both of those very soon indeed. And says, would it be a great peace of mind so they don't get iffy leading into the next window? Yes, I agree. Both players should hopefully, fingers crossed, be signed before the end of the season. James says, do you think Jorginho offers Mikel an option to play a single pivot against weaker opposition in playing a low block? No more than what Partey does. And, with Partey's additional mobility, you've arguably got a more suitable player for a lone six if you want to play Smith Rowe and Odegaard together. But I think that Jorginho is more than capable of coming into this team should Partey be unavailable, should we want to rotate Partey and playing that six role. The thing is, we've got so much pace and mobility around him. I don't look at it as having to kind of babysit him. I don't look at it as having to enable him. He's a player that has his own strengths, the same as Xhaka had his own strengths that unfortunately got kind of exposed when we played him out of position in DM. Jorginho is a DM. That is his position. That's what he's plied his trade in his entire career. Whereas Xhaka, that his best ability has been playing in that role he plays with Switzerland. And finally, we're seeing that play for Arsenal. So what Arteta has been really good at is emphasising the good qualities of players and using his system that he generates with the entire team to kind of minimise the restrictions that some players have. So I'm hopeful that we see that same situation with Arsenal. Carl says, good morning, Tom. Who is now Xhaka's cover? Can Vieira, Smith Rowe play with potentially Odegaard and Partey and Jorginho? I think obviously that they are the clear options. Smith Rowe and Vieira will be Granit Xhaka's alternative options this window, which does concern me a bit because I just don't know whether or not that's enough cover. I would have liked maybe to either keep Lokonga or bring someone else in. But we've made our beds, and now we're going to have to lay in it. James, thank you so much for the kind donation. Says, in full honesty, the price of Caicedo's bids made me a little bit wary by the end. I don't love Jorginho, but it makes sense. Now it's done. Let's just back him. Yeah, absolutely, 100%. I mean, I hope there's no one out there that are just hoping he fails just because they would be right. That would be a bit odd. I hope there are people out there thinking they are hoping to be proven wrong about Jorginho. Kian says, I was with my girlfriend last night. I don't know where this is going, Kian. I was with my girlfriend last night and she told me to use protection. So I signed up with our sponsor. Thank you for that, Kian. I can't say it in part two because part two I don't use that part on our audio platforms. But yes, I appreciate the kind words and donation, Kian. Very, very good indeed. I've trained him well from those phone-in shows, haven't I? Anthony, thank you so much for the kind sponsorship of your membership. Welcome to the family. I hope that you enjoy your time with us. Let's scroll back up and get some more of the comments from earlier, and I'll scroll back down again, but I always scroll down when I get a super chat and then I miss some. So let's scroll back up. Ken says, how the heck is Chelsea going to fit all these new signings into their squad? Doesn't really matter, though. We'll probably stay around the 10th during this season and fade away into a dark void soon. I hope you're right, Ken. And the answer to your question is some players are going to be very unhappy. It's going to be a very fractured dressing room of players not getting too many minutes. Of course, they've still got Champions League football to play, but who knows how they're going to progress through that. They have managed to rebuild their squad in the space of 2 windows, and they're probably going to do more business in the summer. But, you look at that team now and they've got the ability to play some players like Enzo Fernandez. They've got Badiashile coming in. They've got Noni Madueke who can come through and give them options in the wide areas. And they've got Mihailo Mudryk as well. It's going to be a hell of a team once it starts to click. Whether or not it will, we'll have to wait and see. But I, obviously, for one, as I hope you all are too, are hoping that Chelsea crash and burn into a fiery mess of money. Vanajuji says, I see Edu is getting flack, but isn't it at executive board level the financial decisions are made on transfers by the likes of Richard Garlick, Tim Lewis, etc.? No, not particularly. Edu's role as sporting director is very much in line with that of Richard Garlick. Yes, Tim Lewis is above them in more of an executive role, and the owners, of course, have to sign off on things. What you have to remember is that with Edu, I have my criticisms that I think are fair of him. I think he can be too slow. I think he needs to do things quicker. I think if we'd have been more aggressive with the Mudryk deal, we could have got it done. Yes, we may have ended up overpaying, but in the end, our third bid was overpaying. And had we have gone in earlier with a bid around and closer to their valuation, rather than going in at 40 million euros less than that, potentially we would have got our man at the end of the day. But we waited too long. We negotiated too long. And eventually Chelsea came in and blew us out of the water. If we'd have been quick, maybe we could have got that done. Now, the praise is that we managed to get Trossard in and we pivoted quickly to get an alternative that is still very good and will certainly give us plenty of quality both this and in the coming seasons. Same with the midfield situation. We waited and bidded too long on a midfielder that wasn't for sale. And we should have realised that and moved on quicker and potentially maybe would have got a better option than Jorginho. That said, Jorginho for me is still a very good option considering the situation that Arsenal find themselves in, needing immediate impact and Premier League experience and quality that doesn't need to transition to the team and should slot in very nicely should we need him. But it could have been better. And that's why I rated the window a 7 out of 10. I thought it was good. I think we did some good business. Some people have said it's the best window of all teams in the Premier League, which I think is a bit of a stretch considering what Chelsea have done. But if you apply the money, maybe that's what skewed people's minds. But if you consider what Arsenal needed in this window, we needed a midfielder, we needed a forward. And I mean, not many of us were calling for it, but to be honest, we did need a left-sided centre-back to bring in competition and cover for Gabriel. And we've done all those 3 things. Yes, they're not maybe all the players that we would have picked and chose at the start of the window, but we've got, I think, very good options for what we need in this moment in time. You have to remember as well that, yes, we've signed 2 players that are not necessarily part of the youth investment model in Trossard and Jorginho, but Jorginho is replacing Elneny, who already is an older player, and I know there's rumours that he may extend his contract for an additional year. However I feel about that, I'm not sure. I don't necessarily think that will affect our ability to sign players. He's a really key, important part of the squad. And who knows, maybe they're extending him because they'll be able to sell him for some money rather than let him go for free. And Lokonga, I think, potentially could also leave in the summer. as well. So there's plenty of spots open in the squad moving forwards. It's not like, if we'd assigned Memphis Depay on a 3-year deal in the forward line, that sort of thing. I wasn't that keen on that, but signing on to Jorginho for 18 months doesn't create that problem in my view. Let's go to Nick, who says, will it be Caicedo or Rice, or do you think if we win the league, it could be both? I think Arsenal will look to sign 2 midfielders in the summer of a significant level. I hope that obviously one of them is Rice. He seems to be the priority target, and that will be a big test in the summer and a big measure of Edu is whether or not we can get our priority target. If we win the league and Arsenal aren't able to sign their priority target in the summer, that's a big concern. And that will raise big, big questions of Edu, of why we aren't getting those priority targets. But yes, I do think that both players will still be targets, and they might look to try and sign both of them in the summer. Let's go to Tom, who says, with Lokonga gone and Patino still on loan, who are our DM/CM midfield options past Partey, Xhaka, or Jorginho? Are there any in-house youngsters that may be promoted into the main team? I don't think so regarding a youth side of things. Of course, Matt Smith, I still think, is at the club. There were links with him potentially moving away to the Championship, but I don't think that happened unless I drastically missed it. So he is still here. But I think Fabio Vieira, Smith Rowe, some people have suggested Trossard, or I think that's a bit of a stretch. I think these players obviously in a position here where they will cover, but you've got Partey, Jorginho, and arguably Xhaka that can play in the 6th role. And then you've got Xhaka, Smith Rowe, Vieira that can play in the left 8 role. So there are options, but I am still thinking that we're lacking a little bit of the more defensive 8 if Xhaka indeed is unavailable. Let's scroll a little bit more. Wilson says, why on earth is there such an uproar towards Edu? He has not done a bad job. However, it is worrying that we are not getting most of our top targets, and that really needs to be addressed. And I think that's fair. I actually think about writing about that one today. Kieran says, morning, Tom. Now we are in a position where we are in terms of the league. How do you see Arteta setting Arsenal up in the Europa League? I think it depends on who we're playing and, of course, the Premier League team that we got at the weekend. I think Arsenal and Arteta will want to progress and try and win that competition. I think we're the favourites for that competition right now. Yes, you've got Barcelona, Manchester United are in this competition still. In fact, if I try and have a quick look at the Europa League fixtures, we can have a look at who's still in the competition. So we've got 16th of February, which is in 2 weeks' time. We'll see the first round of the round of 32, which we're not involved in, of course, as we progress straight through to the round of 16. You got RB Salzburg, Roma, Barcelona, Man United, Shakhtar Donetsk, Rennes, Ajax, Union Berlin, Sevilla, PSV, Sporting Lisbon, Midtjylland, Juventus, Nantes, Leverkusen, and Monaco are all in the competition. Of course, there are further teams in it. I can tell you that Arsenal, Fenerbahce, Real Betis, Union Saint, is it Saint Gallen? Saint Gilloise, sorry. The Belgian side are still involved. And scrolling down a little bit more, we've also got Real Sociedad, Feyenoord, Freiburg, and Ferencvaros are also still in the competition. So you would say that Arsenal are the favourites, probably closely followed by Barcelona, Manchester United, and then you've got the likes of Juventus and Leipzig. Sevilla are doing really poorly this season, so I wouldn't necessarily put them up at that level, but still some very good teams. Freiburg, also a very good side this season as well. Roma, you could argue, are in there too. Louis, thank you for the donation. Can you put these players in order to play CDM? I'm now looking. Here we go. Partey, Jorginho, Xhaka, Kivior, Zinchenko, and White. You've probably done my order, Louis, to be honest. Partey, Jorginho, Xhaka, Kivior, Zinchenko, White. The reason why Zinchenko is so far down is because I don't want to see him leave left back. I think he's so important in that left back position that I don't really want to see him leaving. So there you go. 8-word Saga says, how many Argentina players thrive in the Premier League other than goalkeepers? It might be another Veron situation for Chelsea. Argentinian players that have thrived in the Premier League. That's a great question. Argentinian Premier League players. Angel Di Maria did not do particularly well. Julian Alvarez, to be fair, is doing really, really well. Emi Buendia is doing okay so far this season. I'm trying to think of any others that come to mind. I'm struggling. Maybe some people in the chat will be coming up with plenty of options that I'm forgetting about. Tevez, Aguero, McAllister. Yes, some really good options being shouted out in the chat. So maybe midfielders is what we're looking at. What midfielders have Mascherano? Great shout. So there you go. I love this. Nelson Vivas. Great shout. Fantastic shout. Lisandro Martinez, Christian Romero as well. So yeah, I think there are quite a few Argentinians, to be fair, that are doing well in the Premier League and have done well as well. Ken says, did anyone see Mavropanos' own goal yesterday? Clearly inspired by Lee Dixon. No, I haven't. Also, Austin Trusty scored an own goal yesterday as well. Seems like the Arsenal former players, well, Trusty's on loan, of course, but Arsenal with their links are scoring own goals. Hopefully that doesn't spread into the Arsenal team. Belage says, Tom, are we finding it a challenge to sign high-price targets? Does it look like a trend? I hope that we buck this trend in the summer. If we don't, if we say we win the league or even come second, which we should be doing one of those two things and potentially win the Europa League, you have to be looking at Edu and say, you have got no excuse but to not get our priority targets during this summer transfer window. KN Asta says, do you think that Bellerin is going to come back to the first team? Well, obviously he will come back and he'll be there for a bit. Whether or not he stays is another thing. I honestly don't know. I don't know. And as I say to people, sometimes when you get asked a question, there isn't that much wrong with saying those three special words of I don't know. And I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with them. We're going to have to wait and see. But Bellerin in particular, Patino, it's really interesting to see what might happen with some of our youth players in the summer and how we might integrate them or sell them for whatever fee we end up getting for them. Anyway, that's going to bring us an end to today's show. As I say, please drop a like before you go. It takes just a second, really helps out the channel. Again, a massive thank you to everybody that's continued to join us in these 8 a.m. shows. They will go on. This is the first return episode of the Arsenal News Show, episode 240. We nearly got, I think, to episode 300 odd of the transfer show. That will resume in June. But the news show will continue forwards. We'll probably get to episode 300 before the end of the season. In fact, we definitely will. Yes, I've done over 500 of these shows at 8 a.m. now, believe it or not. More than 500, which is kind of mad when I set out to do this crazy task in 2021. But I think that you've all enjoyed it very much. So I've enjoyed making them for you. I'm going to continue to enjoy making them for you. We've built an amazing community here. Information on merchandise. Our non-profit merchandise, of course, we're going to be doing some of the caps. I've been discussing with our members in the Discord server about how you can get hold of some of these. It's going to be, to give you some information about that, it's going to be internally in the UK to start with. The only reason for that is because we're using and working with a local business. I wanted to make sure it was kind of more down that route because I didn't really want to go down the conglomerate route. Why help out a big company when we can do it through like a local business instead? So A, we're doing it for a local business. B, it's going to be in the UK to start with, but we're going to see kind of how much demand there is for this. And if there's a lot, maybe they won't be able to spread it. I am planning on going to the US later this year for an event, hopefully a TGT event. Obviously, I'll try and take some with me as well. And maybe that's how we get some people out there in the States. And obviously, the other part of it is it's going to be non-profit. So any profit that is made from selling of any of the merch that we eventually make, which I never thought is something we would do, but anything that we do, half of it's going to go to the Arsenal Foundation and half of it is going to go to Cancer Macmillan support in memory of our good friend of the channel, Vinny. I thought that was the right thing to do. I don't need, people say in the chat box, and also I've said in the Discord server, like, Tom, you're going to go to the effort of, setting all this up and doing it. Guys, I don't need to worry about that. And I'd much rather that this went towards you getting something that you like. I think you're mad for wanting to put TGT on yourselves, but you guys have been asking for it for a long time. But I love that, and that's great, and it shows the community strength of this channel. B, obviously, if we can do something charitable, I'm always up for doing that. And C, helping out a local business as well during, obviously, still in the impacts of the pandemic happening so recently during a very tough time of cost. What's it called at the moment that we're calling it? I can't even remember. Just a social economic crisis globally. So there you go. Yes. There you go. That's an update for you on that. Hopefully be able to give you more information about the US trip. It's going to be Chicago, I can tell you that. But hopefully I'm going to be able to tell you some more information about that in the future if you're in that area. Hopefully there'll be an event coming to you very soon with some very, very cool guests if it all gets sorted out. I'm not going to make any promises yet, but I am still definitely going to be planning on coming to Chicago a little bit earlier on in the year. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. It's been an absolute pleasure to speak with you, as it always is. Do drop a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. And I'll see you again very, very soon. Have a fantastic day. And as always, up the Arsenal.